Yeah, so a lot of Bitcoiners I talk to, they often don't realize that they actually have about 20% less Bitcoin than they think they do. Because that day when you sell, whether it's short-term or long-term capital gains or just basic income, the government's going to take a big bite out of it. That's part of why we built the hack that we created was.
What's going on, guys? We got an awesome conversation that's going to help you save money today. It is with founder and COO Chris Klein of Bitcoin IRA. In this conversation, we know that tax season is coming to a close. There's a deadline coming up on April 15th, and Chris is here to explain exactly what you can do, how to do it, how to fund these accounts, how to use the tax advantage code to your benefit. So make sure you listen to the whole thing. He's got tons of alpha that he's going to share with you. And then, of course, we got a couple good stories, including one guy who's got $50 million in his retirement account. I think you guys are going to love it. Here's my latest conversation with Chris Klein. So Chris, I thought a great place to start the conversation is there's this big rumor in Washington, D.C. that the current administration is going to remove all capital gains tax for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Obviously, if you hold Bitcoin or crypto, you're super excited about this. Do you think it's going to happen? What do you kind of evaluate in terms of what the impact would be if they do this?
It's definitely an exciting rumor for sure. I think that it's going to probably maybe even go beyond crypto too, because the guys that are in real estate or equities or other things are going to say, well, what about us? What about our capital gains? But, hope isn't necessarily a strategy. You have to think long term. When you're looking to sell things or thinking about retirement, when you sell an asset, for you and I, we'll be 7 to 10 presidents or administrations from now. Who's going to be in charge? What will taxes look like then? But certainly something that will accelerate the short term.
And when you think about that 7 to 10 years, one of the big things that I always think about is investing. There's basically 3 inputs to what the return is and what's your take-home money, right? Not what is it on paper, but what do you actually get back? And so if they remove capital gains tax, that'd be huge. But it's what asset am I buying and when am I buying it?
Yep.
What asset am I selling and when am I selling it? And then the third one is the big bad taxes. And you guys seem to be very, very focused on helping Bitcoiners and crypto holders invest in these assets in a tax-advantaged way. And there's a whole bunch of things that I think we're going to get into in terms of how you can do that. But talk a little bit just about like taxes in general being such a big impact on what the return is. Because you guys see all the data. You see what your customers are doing. Absolutely. And you can see how important it is to have these tax-advantaged accounts.
Yeah, so a lot of Bitcoiners I talk to, they often don't realize that they actually have about 20% less Bitcoin than they think they do. Because that day when you sell, whether it's short-term or long-term capital gains or just basic income, the government's going to take a big bite out of it. But no matter who's in charge, that's the nature of the beast. And so that's part of why we built the hack that we created was what better way to get into cryptocurrency if you think long-term than use some of the tools like Roths and traditionals and SEPs. That these are the tools that the government gives us to save effectively so that we can avoid some of those tax hits down the road.
So you guys have these IRA accounts. There's a whole bunch of different types of IRAs that you can do. There's a couple of different ways to fund it, which I think maybe is a good place to start, right? Is you can just contribute, but there's other ways as well. And so maybe walk through like, how does money get into these accounts? And what are you seeing your customers do? Like, what are the most popular ways that they get money into these accounts?
Absolutely. There's 3 key ways. So you just mentioned contribution. You can do up to $7,500 if you're under 50 or $8,000 a year now if you're over 50. And that's a pretty popular way to continue to grow your retirement every year, which actually the tax deadline's coming up, April 15th. You have until then to do last year's contribution. A lot of folks, they call it the catch-up contribution. Oh, I forgot to do it last year. I have until April 15th. That's one way. But the more popular is to fund from an existing IRA, like if you got something at Fidelity, Charles Schwab, even Edward Jones, you can transfer from your left-hand pocket to your right-hand pocket. There's no tax implication because it's staying inside the tax deferred and sheltered umbrella. And then the really big one is your old 401k or 403b or pension, or maybe you might have had a TSP as a soldier, is to roll those over into these traditional or Roth IRA tools. It's really important that when you leave a job, it liberates your 401k, and you don't want to leave it behind at the old employer. You can move it at that time.
So talk through that a little bit, right? So like if you have a 401k but you left the job, like what do? You just call somebody up and you're like, hey, give me my 401k, or how does that work?
In fact, we have folks that help you do that because it is one of the more, I would say, tenuous processes. They don't really like to give up that AUC or that assets under management. So what you'll do is first you open up a like kind account. So if you have you can have pre or post tax funds. You open that on our side. You'll have a traditional or Roth IRA, and then you request a rollover. Sometimes like some of the smaller groups have this cumbersome paperwork you have to fill out. We can help you do that. And then often you just call or go online to like Net Benefits or things like that, and they'll send a check made out to the new financial institution and then get deposited in your new IRA. IRA.
So they're basically like kind of like a gym subscription or something like that. They really don't want you to be able to get the money.
They're
in.
really
So
good at holding on to
What's the
it.
craziest things you guys have seen them try to do to hold on to those assets?
You know, the time periods, so pensions are the worst. I've seen a pension take 90 days to issue a distribution. And it just blew my mind because if I took 90 days as a financial services firm to give somebody their money, I would probably be in court. But because pensions are, and also the TSPs are government driven. So if you go and see the forms, remember those old forms like in the 80s where it's like a box for that, they still use those forms. I can't wait till Elon finds this bunker full of paperwork. And so then you have to send it off. You can't fax it. You have to mail it old school mail, no FedEx, no UPS. Has got to go USPS to them. It's actually processed in this bunker in Pennsylvania that was used.
Oh, literally in a bunker.
It literally is in a bunker. And they've got, I could imagine, I've never been in there, but I can imagine like these stacks and stacks and stacks of old like filing cabinets. And on average, a TSP can take upwards of 15, 20 days. In fact, there was I think right after COVID, with a lot of people that got opened distribution availability for them because they lost their jobs, they had like a 6-month backlog. It was on the news. And these are veterans. These are folks that have dedicated their time to our country, and they have to wait to basically liberate their funds. I have seen, the ones that are really good are 403Bs or 457s for firemen, nurses, and police officers. Those usually, because they have great unions to make sure they get taken care of.
Now, let's talk about the types of accounts here, because when I first started making any little bit of money, I was like, what's a retirement account? I don't even know what that is. Oh, it's tax advantage. Like, okay, I'm interested. You hear about a Roth or you hear about some of these things. And I remember the first time an accountant told me about a SEP account.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, baby, that sounds awesome.
With bigger contributions.
So explain a little bit about the different account types and why certain people may use different accounts.
The most common you see out there is a traditional IRA. It's post-tax money, pre-tax money. And what that does is it allows you, so say you made $100,000 last year and you contribute to a traditional IRA $8,000. Now your taxable income is dropped by $8,000. So now you have a $92,000 that they do the math of your taxes on. Great way to, especially if you're close to a bracket, to be able to drop that down and get underneath that next bracket in the waterfall. The next, which came up in the 70s, is the Roth IRA. It's actually named after Edward Roth he's from Delaware, of all places, a senator, that we were in a crisis. We were in a savings crisis in America in the 70s. We were in a lot of crises, oil crises, inflation crises, but we're also in a savings crisis. Folks were just not saving money. So he mechanized and got passed through the Senate a tool where you do post-tax money. So instead of get that benefit on the front side, you get the benefit on the back side. You are able to take funds out completely tax-free. And I want to repeat that, tax-free when you reach the age of retirement. So if your $8,000 in Bitcoin skyrockets to $800,000, when you start taking your distributions at that ripe age of 59 and a half, or if you wait till later, you're completely tax-free. It also has two really cool mechanisms for younger guys. You can use it for higher education expenses without penalty or taxes, and you can use it for first-time home buying expenses without penalty or taxes.
And so once you put the money in, it's already been, you've already got some taxes there, but it's growing, and you can trade
all
you
day.
You can go from a ETF to spot Bitcoin to your favorite, Bitcoin treasury company,
or any altcoin, or swap between any other crypto that's out there.
All kinds of different things in there, and you're not paying taxes.
No capital gains taxes.
And the whole key is that essentially they have incentivized you financially to be a long-term thinker till you're 59 and a half.
These are the tools they gave us. It said, hey, if you put the money in here, you can trade all day long, go crazy. You don't have to report it because it's staying inside that shelter of what we call the tax umbrella over the top of it. And so until you take distribution, you won't have any tax implications.
And when you get to 59 and a half, you can just take 100% of it, or you have to take out a little bit?
You can take it all at that point, but it's important because if you're in a traditional environment where you will have income taxes, a lot of accountants will say, make sure you're not putting too much out, because you don't want to all of a sudden take out $1 million and have this giant tax bill. You got to be strategic about it, spread it across, just like dollar cost averaging with investments. Mm-hmm. Average your way out of your retirement and only take out what you need for expenses every year, mm-hmm. or if you have some big plan that you want to do. Now with the Roth, you can go crazy because it's tax free.
Yeah, so with the Roth, you can just take out 100% of it at 59 and a half, and you're good to go.
Yep, absolutely.
And is that how I think Peter Thiel put equity from PayPal, and it became like a couple $1 billion?
Yes, that's how he started with the PayPal equity. Then he put his shares of Facebook, Airbnb, and Uber inside the same Roth account. And I think it's up to $2 or $3 billion now, which is driving the government crazy, of course, right? But then also you brought up the SEP. You have a SEP account with us, and that you're qualified for that. And a lot of folks are more qualified for SEPs than ever before because we're in a gig economy. We're all running our own small business, even though a lot of us may be 1040 or W-2 incomes. If you have any 1099 incomes, run a small business, your contribution skyrockets. You can do upwards of $50,000 to $60,000 a contribution, which for a small business, amazing.
So just so people understand, a SEP account is something, if you have a small business or you have this 1099 income, what you're able to do is you're able to put a higher degree of capital in. Yes. It's going in pre or post-tax?
It's
pre-tax. And same thing, just continues to compound in there, tax-free, and you're good to go.
And every year you get that larger contribution. There's also something that's become really popular for higher net worth earners called a solo K or an Indy K. Mm-hmm. And this is where between, if you and your spouse, you can put upwards of almost $150,000 tucked away pre-tax and get that benefit and lower that income bracket for your small business.
And so what are like the rich people doing? I think that's the key that everyone wants to know, right? Is they're like, hey, I'm operating, maybe I'm smart, maybe I even know an accountant, I have an accountant, I talk to an accountant, they tell me some things here and there, but like I know they got rich clients that are doing stuff I'm not doing. Like what should I be doing? What do you see the wealthiest clients on your platform doing that maybe the average person doesn't know about?
Backdoor Roths is probably the most popular because what happens is with the Roth, the way they did put a limitation on it, you have to make only less than $142,000, $150,000 called the MAGI score. It's your adjusted gross income. If that's over a certain level, then you're not eligible to contribute to Roths.
Okay.
So what they'll do is they'll contribute, or they'll have a traditional IRA already, say $500,000 or $1 million, and they'll see Bitcoin like it did for the last couple of weeks dip down into 79, 80,000, and they'll time their conversion. So they'll convert from a traditional to a Roth, it's commonly known as a backdoor Roth. What they do is you pay the taxes now, but you're now taking that pre-tax money, turning it into post-tax money and watching it grow over time. Especially if it's not just being rich, but being very confident with your investment strategy. If you think that's going to 5 or 6x, because you also think just 7 years from now, miners are going to be competing over less than 1 Bitcoin for every block. And we all know what that's going to do to the price of Bitcoin as supply and demand constraints come into play. So if you're thinking that long term, this may be the time where people, I hear it all the time. My Uber driver tells me all the time, oh man, Bitcoin's too expensive. Rich people are thinking, man, that's pretty cheap right now when you think about the economics of it.
And so when you look at these different accounts, right? Tax season is coming. There's a lot of people who are saying, maybe I didn't plan as much as I should have planned. What can they still do between now and this tax deadline that may put them in a better position than they are now? And then obviously they should be responsible and go and plan and, kind of do things for next year. But right now, is there anything they can do in this last couple of weeks that they should be thinking about?
Yes, they can. They have up until April 15th to contribute for last year. And what a lot of folks do is, hey, I don't want to be in the same place again next year. So they'll do a double down. They'll do their $7,500 for 24 and just go ahead and get the $7,500 done for 25. And now you've put $15,000 pre or post tax away that you can start investing in things like cryptocurrency. And you have up until that deadline. We make it really simple because we have a Plaid integrated. So you can just log in and connect your bank account. And the next day the funds are there available for you to trade and everything gets filed appropriately for the tax year that you look